we're here at the Mums for Liberty conference with Tulsi Gabbard after she came out this week to endorse former President Donald Trump. Could you just speak to that decision and just this idea that also RFK, another former Democrat, came out in support of the former president as opposed to Vice President Kamala Harris? You know, can you just talk to that decision as well as the significance of people like you to this election?
There are a lot of people across the country who have gone through perhaps a similar experience as I have or feel as I have, and even Bobby Kennedy, in that today's Democrat Party does not represent the party that we have been a part of for so long. The opportunity here in this election and the statement that has been made very clear over this past week with these endorsement announcements of President Trump is that this choice before voters in America is not between the Democrats versus the Republicans, which is what kind of the mainstream media will try to present it to be. It's really a choice between a candidate in Donald Trump who stands for peace and freedom and prosperity for all Americans versus a candidate in Kamala Harris who has shown through her record over these last 3.5 years and beyond that she will bring more anti-freedom policies. We will see an increasingly tyrannical government that tries to censor free speech, either directly or indirectly through proxies like Facebook and Meta and others. We will see more war. The Harris-Biden administration has us embroiled in multiple wars around the world and closer to the brink of World War III and nuclear war than ever before. And we will see increased economic hardship for Americans. And so the choice that we have in looking out for the best interests of the American people, our security, our freedom, our ability to have a bright future could not be more clear in this election. And President Trump is showing that he has the ability to bring people together who may not agree on every issue, may have strong disagreements on a few or many issues, but who are coming together around the most fundamental and important issues to us as Americans in peace and freedom.
So it's interesting, you've had this journey where you were a former supporter of Bernie Sanders in 2016 and you ran for president yourself, and now you're sort of in the Trump camp. I mean, are there lots of people like you out there? I mean, how should the Trump campaign reach out to people like you? I know you tried to do a town hall with him last night. You know, you're sort of on the podcast circuit. Is that the best way? Is that how you're advising him?
It's reaching people however and wherever we can. You know, people are consuming information and media in a lot of different ways right now. But to your question, I mean, I endorsed Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton in 2016 around one single issue, and that was the issue of war and peace. And pointing out as a service member, as a veteran of multiple deployments to war zones in different parts of the world, back then how dangerous Hillary Clinton would be as the queen of warmongers if she were allowed to be commander-in-chief, and the cost that would come with that to our national security and in the lives of my brothers and sisters in uniform, versus Bernie Sanders, who's largely a non-interventionist. But as we saw even in that 2016 election, there were many Bernie Sanders supporters who, after he suspended his campaign and endorsed Hillary Clinton, they left and they endorsed and supported and voted for President Trump. Why is that? Because they saw what many people are seeing now, is that President Trump is someone who will fulfill his promises in fighting for the people. And so you saw some of the populist policies of Bernie Sanders or some of the populist policies that President Trump had then and continues to have now, fighting for the working man and woman in our country. You know, he's talking about no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security. He's talking about the people who are struggling to survive right now in this tough economic environment that's been created by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And really, what do we want as Americans, as voters? We want to have confidence that our president and our commander-in-chief has our back and is looking out for us, not some big corporate elitist, not the big military-industrial complex, not big pharma. We want to know that we've got somebody to fight for us, and I think that's what Bobby Kennedy sees, that's what I see, and that's what I think more and more Americans, I hope, are going to start to reflect on when we compare the records between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
So you're a part of the Trump transition team, sort of moving forward as they prepare for a potential second administration. I mean, what priorities do you want him to focus on going into a second term?
We haven't met yet, so I don't have much to say about a transition team. But I think President Trump has made his own priorities very clear, really, in what I just talked about. It is about peace and freedom and prosperity. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. We cannot be truly free if we are in a constant state of war, as we have seen, where too often the powers that be, the national security state, those who derive power from taking away our liberty, often use the excuse of, well, we have to keep you safe, and therefore we must take away more of your liberty. What we saw with the Patriot Act, what we've seen with the expansion of the Patriot Act most recently, and there are many other examples. So, there's a lot of work to be done. There are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. But what I think is at the heart of the transformational change that President Trump has the opportunity to bring about if he gets elected to another term in office, it cuts to the heart of the swamp of Washington. And that includes elected politicians and a whole lot of unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state who unfortunately have gotten to a point where they believe that they are more important and more powerful than the voices of the people, and that they will do what is in their best interests at the cost of our liberty. So, President Trump has shown he's already assembling a team of people who are putting our country first and committed to that cause, putting the interests of the American people first, versus the careerists of the swamp of Washington who will put their power over people and the interests of the people every day. That is the heart of the transformational change that needs to take place across every agency in our government.
And you would potentially help him as part of his cabinet? You would be
I
open
would
to
look
that?
forward, if given that opportunity, and if he asked me to serve in that way, I would look forward to taking on that challenge and leading that change that we all know. Anybody who's paying attention and who's not part of the swamp knows that there's a whole lot that's wrong that needs to be fixed.
So another thing that you're helping the former president with is debate prep. What does debate prep with Trump look like? I mean, what are you advising on?
Nothing like you would assume. Nothing like any other politician. He's not a politician. And quite frankly, if he had the opportunity to debate Kamala Harris tomorrow, I have no doubt he would step on that stage, ready to take her on. So the preparation is really not necessary for him, because he's out there, he's doing interviews with reporters, he's holding hour-and-a-half-long press conferences, taking questions from everyone on any issue under the sun. We had a town hall last night where he covered a lot of issues that were brought up by voters from Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan and other states. So, he stands on a pretty successful record as president. He knows Kamala Harris's failed record. On the debate stage, I think he'll take the opportunity to tell the truth to the American people about her failed, disastrous record that she's trying desperately to cover up right now. If I can be helpful to him in any way, it really is just sharing the experience that I've had with her on the debate stage and how she will try to hide, deflect away from, distract away from the truth about who she is and her record, and the fact that the policies, at least so far, that she has talked about just a little bit, stand diametrically opposed to her record, which just shows us again she is a fake person who cannot be trusted and who cares only about herself and her political ambition and not about the American people.
Well, I think that's really interesting, because I think you were one of the few people that really took her on the debates in 2020. And so I was wondering what you thought her Achilles heel would be. It sounds like it's more sort of personality as opposed to policy. How
it speaks to character. It's about her character, and that was really what I exposed in that debate in 2019 when we were both candidates running for president, was her hypocrisy and how she would say one thing and do another. She would hold the people to one standard and hold herself to a different standard. I challenged her on the record that she claimed to be proud of, and she had nothing to say to defend that record. Not much has changed between then and now. She has a very clear record. As much as the New York Times and others might try to make excuses for her and say, oh, well, she's a brand new candidate and she's going to bring change and all this other stuff, she's been the vice president of the United States for the last 3.5 years, a breath away from the presidency, someone who she says is the last person in the room with President Biden when he's making a decision. She has cast more tie-breaking votes in the United States Senate than any other vice president in history. She has not been some passive person sitting in the corner. She is responsible for every policy that the Biden-Harris administration has pushed forward in these last three and a half years, policies that she has said time and time again she is proud of, touting their success. So she cannot run away from this record as hard as she tries. President Trump will have the opportunity on the debate stage to hold her to account for that record that she has said she is proud of, in the same way that I did with her in 2019.
So you think the most sort of potent attacks for Trump will be sort of the Biden administration record? Because I know that you sort of criticized her for the Kamala as a cop sort of side of her record. Is that so? It's more powerful to tie her to Biden as opposed to going back.
It's not about tying her to Biden. It's tying her to her own record. She can't separate herself from it as much as she tries. She has very intentionally tied herself as vice president to Joe Biden, pointing out, both of them, that there is no space between them when it comes to policy, that they were a team, that they did everything together. This is about holding her to account for her record and sharing the truth with the American people that Kamala Harris is trying to hide with her lies.
So last question, I think that, despite what you're saying about the vice president, she's surging in polls, fundraising, and it feels like it is her election to lose. I mean, is there anything that Trump can do to turn it around? You saying that he could, if he can just stick to this message, particularly on the debate stage against the vice president, that he could win this. But I mean, does he have the discipline to do that?
Of course, he has the ability to share the truth with the American people about Kamala Harris. I'm not surprised she's getting a little bump in the polls. Polls change on a daily basis, but when you have almost every mainstream propaganda media source doing your work for you as a presidential candidate, what do you think is going to happen? The American people are not as stupid as Kamala Harris thinks that they are, though. When they see the truth about her record, when they hear the truth about her record, when they see her on that debate stage, it's going to be very difficult for her to run away from that truth. She can talk about a joyful campaign and she can continue laughing, but the American people are not laughing. The American people are struggling with great economic hardship. People are struggling to make those decisions between how do I afford my kids' school supplies and actually have a fridge full of food for them when they come home to feed them. We are closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation and war than we ever have been before. There are a lot of issues in this country that Kamala Harris cannot run away from or laugh her way through because we are not laughing. These are serious issues, and we need strong leadership to come in and fix what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have broken in this country. And I endorse President Trump because he is that person who has the strength and the commitment and capability to do that.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For more content, visit the Washington Examiner's website at washingtonexaminer.com.